Welcome to the buff, nerf and keep brawler trios challenge. For each fully completed trio we need to buff one brawler and nerf one brawler. First up is the Wild West trio, which I think are all well balanced. But if I had to, I would nerf Colt and buff Spike. However, all three of the Metropolis brawlers need huge buffs. It's very close, but BB is the best and Bull is the worst of this trio. So buff Bull and nerf BB. Next is the Arcade trio. Again, they are all very balanced. I think if we buffed or nerfed 8-bit in any way, he'd either be op or trash. So we'll keep him as he is. And between Rico and Brock, Rico isn't better, but he's more annoying. The townsfolk trio is one of the least connected. I think the only nerf Byron needs is to his range. He can play like a sniper. And while Barley is stronger, I do not want to face a stronger Piper. Junker trio next. The only reason people play Pam is for the mastery title, not even the hypercharge. Just reduce the attack spread and buff the unload speed. I always felt that Noni dealt a bit too much damage at close range. However, if we nerf the U-load speed, she still keeps her strength at long range. Another 3 balanced brawlers with the shaman trio. I don't like that slow brawlers can't deactivate Bo's mines well. And Nita just needs a projectile speed buff or a range buff to be viable outside heist. Minor trio. Carl's shots are way too easy to hit, so we can nerf his projectile width, but that might be a bit harsh. And again, I'd rather not buff Dynamite. Jackie is pretty weak on open maps anyways. Obviously, from the Mexican entertainers, we have to nerf Poco. And El Primo is extremely weak on open maps and against snipers. Also, I don't want to buff Amber because her main attack is so annoying. For the undead trio, the easiest decision was actually who to buff. Mid-range brawlers usually only work as tanks, like Ollie and Buster, not Ems. She is vulnerable to assassins and relies way too much on friend zoner gadget. As for who to nerf, I don't like my Frank Random, so the Mystic Shop trio is my favorite. I think you can guess why. Not only do they have the second best dynamic to the Candyland trio, but they also have matching color schemes and their brawlers aren't ridiculously OP. But anyways, obviously I'm gonna buff my main Sandy. It's sad to see old legendaries like Luon, Crow, Sandy and Spike get power crept. However, Jean definitely did not get power crept for a simple reason. Unlike Tara and Sandy, Jean's super is quite easy to charge. All three have great supers, but Jean has a much easier time getting it. So maybe they should nerf the shot spread. Now actually I have no idea what to do for the pirate trio, so put your ideas in the comments. Out of literally every trio, this is the most obvious one. B is way too versatile. She is a sniper that can deal 7,000 damage into shots. And the gadget rework made Rattled Hive way too spammy. Meanwhile, the once broken Rosa got the short end of the stick. Many thought the gadget rework would make her broken, but it was the opposite. Her play rated lower than ever. The snowtel trio is also a great trio, but this isn't about ranking my favorites. Mr. P got a month of glory with his hyper before they nerfed him into the ground. For that short time, when he got his hyper it was already over. Now he's starting to fall down the ranks again as the sniper meter is being taken over by brawlers that counter him such as Lumi, Kenji and Hank. He should have just got a regular nerf instead of letting the porters decay. Compare that to Lou, who feels like a new brawler even thought he released years ago. His frost mechanic was ahead of its time and his hyper can turn around games completely. Maybe they could decrease how slippery the super is to balance him. Nothing much to say about Gale though, he's quite balanced. I'll get straight to the point with Meg. She doesn't just need a buff, she needs a third rework. And not just stats buffs and slight modifications to the mechanics. They need to turn her into a whole new brawler. As of right now she has less health than Frank, but needs to use her super to regenerate half of it. And there are other things I could say that make her horrible to play. But this section is getting long. Max is better than Surge because Surge needs upgrades and Max just gives pure speed. I know it's a brief summary, but let's move on. The gift shop trio is self-explanatory. Everything Colette can do, at least 3 brawlers do it better. Edgar Mains do not need a reason to play him more. And Griff is doing better than ever with his hypercharge and Brawl Arena. Ruffs doesn't need a buff, he's just underrated with a terribly cheesy star power. So scrap field promotion for a better one? Meanwhile, Squeak got a major buff with the gadget rework, so increasing his gadget cooldowns a bit would work. I know Eve is forgotten, but she is balanced. The Stunt show trio is quite an interesting one. People say Stu is extremely skilled, but his playstyle is similar to Fang, which people consider unskilled. However, he doesn't really need a balance change. Meanwhile, Janet is extremely strong in gem grab because of her super, so either reduce the duration or charge rate, but not both, or else she will be F tier. That leaves Bonnie to buff, which I'm sure everyone is fine with. First of all, I do not want to talk about the third brawler in this trio for reasons unspecified, but with that out of the way. 3 days. Sam's hyper made him a decent brawler for 3 days before it got nerfed to the ground. Now he's back with his friends Bull and Duggan, F tier, and I don't even know how to buff him well. At the same time, Belle has been long overdue a nerf to everything except her hypercharge, so the reasons are obvious. I'd say this trio is the most balanced of the newer trios. However, that doesn't change the fact that Grom is the weakest brawler at close range. I'd just say to give him a way to defend himself, other than that he is a reliable brawler. Meanwhile, Ash is just a brawler for tryhards, doesn't need a nerf, but he's better than Mo. Nothing much to say about these guys. Gray's kit is too broken for him to ever fall out of the meter. He is a hybrid sniper, assassin, support and rip-off gene all at once. In modes like Gem Grab and Hot Zone, he can regain control in seconds, and on the other end of the spectrum, Lola tries to do a ton at once like Gray, but unfortunately her ego doesn't have enough health to survive aggressive plays. Miko is quite annoying, so it's better to not bring him into the spotlight. Now here's the other cinema trio, and probably the more popular one. Buster is the obvious choice for the nerf. His super and hyper are ridiculously easy to cycle. Meanwhile, Fang and Maisie both need buffs. They are interchangeable here. Fang's hyper is impossible to charge and Maisie's shots are impossible to hit, at least against someone who know what they're doing. Everyone was talking about how forgotten Clancy used to be, but not Otis. He does great damage and his super is good, but there are just better anti-tanks. I think I'm justified to say a range buff would fit. Meanwhile, Hank is the only hard counter to Shade, and I like Shade so. And Clancy still has the same problems as before, but now he's good in heist. Let's be honest with ourselves, Chester's hyper did not get nerfed at all. This thing is still a team wipe button, and it's the only thing I want nerfed. Both the area coverage and damage. Meanwhile, Mandy is nowhere near the best sniper, as she has to stand still to shoot, so her only way of dealing damage is by becoming a vulnerable sitting target. The most recently completed trio is the Ghost Train trio, and I love that he has the same voice actor as Sandy, but Gus is more sniper than support, so consider nerfing his range. Shade is the most lovable recent character for a reason, and I wouldn't give him a buff or nerf. And I think the only thing Chuck needs is a change to his main attack, because it's horrid. His super rewards a high skill cap, but not his main attack. And I think they can lean into him being high skill like with Cat Says Geisha form. Thank you so much for watching until the end, but don't click off just yet. If you go onto my channel page, I have a post about skin ideas, and you can decide what skin I make for which brawler. So if you want to see that, take the form in the description or on my post.